New video footage of the shooting of the protester in Minnesota and President Trump meeting with major oil company executives to discuss rebuilding Venezuela. Joining me now to discuss these latest developments are panelist Mally Smith, Democratic strategist, and former Harris Campaign North Carolina political director, as well as Brian Maloney, conservative strategist. Great to have you both with us. So a new video out today of the shooting in Minnesota. Let's take a look at this footage, which appears to be recorded by the officer who fired the shots.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
Show your face.
I'm not mad at you.
It's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
Oh! What you did see there, Mally, is what appears to be the victim who was in the driver's seat as the officer circled around, and then her wife or partner or girlfriend sort of confronting and agitating the officer. If you've seen the full video, does this video debunk the number of narratives that have been circulating? For example, that the driver, Renee, was scared, that she didn't hit the officer with her car, or that she ultimately didn't know who the agents were? What was your reaction to the video?
Look, I think we've seen continually video come out, and what's happening is it's reconfirming everyone's priors. You have conservative folks who have seen any new video that comes out, and they say it confirms everything they initially believed, that she was this radical person trying to kill this ICE agent. And then any video that comes out, you have progressives saying this confirms what they already believe. But to me, the question is whether this force should have been used. And in my opinion, I do believe that this is an excessive use of force. And I also think this has got to be something where we have to step back and say, what are we doing here? Like, what is this for? The folks ICE has arrested, 5% of them have a violent criminal record. 73% of them have no criminal record at all, not violent, not anything. And we're doing this, we're going, as J.D. Vance said, door to door and sowing chaos in communities with ICE, all to get folks who are just working and living in the community to deport. We can do better than this. We can have a better immigration policy than this, which involves a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants while targeting violent criminals. And again, ICE is failing at that. And this data I listed is ICE's own data. Their own data admits that their policy here is a failure, and they are sowing division and chaos.
I mean, Mally, I just want to follow up. Speaking of sowing division and chaos, I mean, to your common person, what the heck are they doing sitting in the middle of the street in the middle of an ICE raid?
Well, look, they're protesting. It's not something I would necessarily have done, but that also doesn't mean that she should be shot 3 times in the head. Like, after she was shot 3 times in the head, the guy called her a F and then said the BITCH. And look, this is not something that I think Americans are going to look positively on. We can do better than this when it comes to immigration policy.
So, Brian, I want your reaction to everything we're discussing here. In that video, Renee's wife said, you want to come at us? I say, go get yourself some lunch, big boy, implying that they felt somewhat untouchable.
Well, exactly. And the narrative has completely changed since the release of additional angles. And, when we do piece it all together, what is painted is a very disturbing picture. What we had seen initially was, or at least there was speculation, that maybe she was scared or had just turned the wrong way or was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And as time has gone by and we've learned more, it turns out that in fact she's a professional activist, that her wife is as well, that the video shows agents being taunted. And by the way, what led up to this was the agents being repeatedly blocked by the vehicles, including Good, who seemed to be the lead vehicle, according to the agents. So this is a culmination of frustration. These activists have no business interfering with federal agents. There are other ways to change policy if they don't like what the agents are doing. There is a political system. There are courts. There are other ways to go about this other than physically moving your car toward a federal agent and then being surprised when this is the outcome. And by the way, that agent has an impeccable record going back decades. And this is not someone who is trigger happy by any means. It's a very, very disturbing element. But I don't think the American people are on board with this woman and her wife after seeing the various different angles that we have now. Very, very disturbing.
Brian, there's a sentiment out there that the media has a certain hand in the, perpetuating, the ideas that ultimately what some call radicalize people to go out and put themselves in the middle of a situation like that. What is the media's responsibility in all of this?
Well, they always do this. They're putting ICE on trial. And the fact is, these activists were there. They were impeding their work. And what do you have instead? I mean, you have the media portraying this as ICE, like it's the Wild West and they're out shooting people randomly. And the bottom line is we don't have this happening on a regular basis. We don't have this happening ever, really. And that the circumstances that existed led up to what happened. And the media has an agenda. That agenda never changes, and it's no surprise to anyone. That's why the agency tried to get out in front of the news cycle on this and speak out quickly rather than waiting for further details to come in. They went with what they knew at the time because they know that they are at a great disadvantage with the media and that they had to speak out.
Switching gears a bit, President Trump today meeting with major oil executives, American oil executives, to hash out plans to rebuild Venezuela's energy sector. Let's hear from the president.
American companies will have the opportunity to rebuild Venezuela's rotting energy infrastructure and eventually increase oil production to levels never, ever seen before. When you add Venezuela and the United States together, we have 55% of the oil in the world. The United States is number one.
Brian, President Trump says Venezuela has agreed to let U.S. companies refine and sell their oil. Is this a mutually beneficial move for both America and Venezuela?
In the short term, it's a non-starter. Only Chevron is still inside Venezuela today, and their output is meager. Under the socialist rule for 24 years, the oil industry was decimated. The infrastructure is gone, and rebuilding it would take $100 billion or more. I mean, that there are crazy numbers being thrown about. But Venezuela, as what at one time was a major oil producer and OPEC member, it has today just a tiny fraction. The engineers fled the country. So there's not much that can really be done here in the short term to get things pumping and moving. And beyond that, you have the same regime still in power. And the problem with that is, getting them to cooperate is tricky. So that's simply because it wasn't possible to completely reorder Venezuela's political system. So we essentially are left with Maduro's junior, associates running the place, which is not a good thing. But I think the real issue here is the next door neighbor, Guyana. And that's where the oil is really going to flow from. And, Maduro and Venezuela repeatedly threatened to annex 2/3 of Guyana. It is really the site of some of the biggest oil discoveries of the last century. And if Guyana is now safe, it doesn't have much military of its own, but if it's safe from being annexed by Venezuela and they can really get the pumps moving, we're going to benefit that way. So it's actually, and you don't hear much about this, but that's actually the most important element of this entire story.
Mally, your thoughts. Do you think it's a strategic move for the U.S. to revive Venezuela's oil industry, especially considering the national security implications?
I think that this incursion in Venezuela is a strategically misguided action by the Trump administration. First off, on the oil front, we are the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas, and that has led to record low gas prices. We are not hurting for oil. So I don't see the strategic imperative there. Second, as my colleague said, it's going to take billions and billions and billions of dollars of investment in years to get this oil online. Exxon just said that Venezuela is currently uninvestable. And let's say we do get this oil online after billions of dollars of investment from the oil companies, which the Trump administration has also hinted at that the U.S. taxpayer might help foot the bill. So we have the taxpayers helping pay for oil companies' investments, which is suspect. But even if we do get it online, we have U.S. producers of oil and crude here who would suffer because if you increase the supply of oil from abroad, you're going to see U.S. domestic producers potentially suffer. And then lastly, if we were interested in oil and energy prices, the Trump administration shouldn't have cut the investments in the Inflation Reduction Act from the Biden administration, which were helping lower utility costs by investing in green and renewable energies. And under the Trump administration, we've seen utility and electric bills rise, not fall, rise. And instead of doing things to help that, what's really hurting Americans' households' budgets, we have them shilling for oil companies and essentially saying the U.S. taxpayer might foot the bill.
Brian, there's a lot of discussion about the Monroe Doctrine, now the Dunn Road Doctrine. Oftentimes in these scenarios, the reason for doing it is not as clear as what it may be, and thereby it becomes sort of an intangible or not easy to measure quantifiable result. Are there any metrics in place that would tell you that this was a success down the line, other than, say, China's slow creep not eventually taking over in our hemisphere?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. This really was about China more than it was about Venezuela. And it was certainly about Iran. And while the Iranian regime may be in great trouble right now, it is still a major component to this equation. But it's also about regional security. And as I mentioned a moment ago regarding Guyana, which was threatened with annexation based on a 200-year-old weak land claim that was going to supposedly entitle Maduro to take 2/3 of the country, and another major oil producer next door, which is Trinidad and Tobago, which has also been under threat by the Maduro regime, that is a very friendly ally of the United States of America. So if we now have regional security, if we no longer have Hezbollah training on Margarita Island, which is part of Venezuela, formerly a nice resort island that became a terror training ground, if we no longer have that, and we have some political prisoners being freed, although we need many more, this is a drop in the bucket so far. But I think it's as much as Trump could do at the moment. This is going to take years to turn this around. It took 24 years to destroy. Building it will take just as long.
Brian Maloney, Mally Smith, greatly appreciate both of you joining us. Thank you.